Soledar in the Donetsk region, because capturing these towns means changing the course of the war. The Russian occupiers have deployed almost all their troops, especially the Wagner group of mercenaries, in these critical areas. The Ukrainian army has also deployed its troops and equipment in these two regions, as well as in the surrounding areas and behind the front lines to protect the defense line. However, in addition to all these preparations, the Ukrainian army has recently made a very important strategic move. This move stunned the Russian army. The Russian invaders were expecting an attack from Ukrainian troops in the intensifying conflict in Soledar. But the Ukrainian army withdrew many of its soldiers in Soledar to the defense line. There was a reason for the withdrawal of the army to the defense line, but the Russian soldiers did not know about it. The Russian army was advancing into the territory of Soledar with troops brought to Soledar from Bakhmut and neighboring towns. This meant that the Ukrainian army had a plan in mind, because 3,000 soldiers of the Ukrainian army unexpectedly crossed from Soledar to Bakhmut. Ukrainian troops had no difficulty against Russia, which pulled most of its troops from Bakhmut to Soledar. Russian troops advancing in Soledar and expecting an attack from Ukraine were surprised by the appearance of 3,000 Ukrainian soldiers in Bakhmut, next to the town of Soledar. The Russian army had to retreat from Soledar to support its troops in Bakhmut. Meanwhile, there was an uproar in the army. Which unit was to go to Bakhmut? Going for the 3,000 Ukrainian troops in Bakhmut meant going to death. But it was more dangerous to abandon a strategic area like Bakhmut. A choice had to be made between soldiers of the Russian army and mercenaries of the private military company Wagner Group. The army decided that the Wagner Group soldiers should go to Bakhmut. The soldiers of the Wagner Group, heading from Soledar to Bakhmut, again encountered an unexpected development. The plan the Ukrainian army had in mind was working. Ukrainian troops predicted that Russian troops would move from Soledar to Bakhmut. The Ukrainian army deployed its troops on the route from Soledar to Bakhmut. After the shock in Soledar, the soldiers of the Wagner Group received a big shock on the way back to Bakhmut. Ukrainian troops blocked the passage of Wagner Group soldiers to Bakhmut. Having suffered a major setback in Bakhmut and Soledar, the Russian army tried their luck in the nearby towns of Krasnohora and Klishchivka. The Russian invaders who attacked these regions were going to enter Bakhmut and Soledar with the power they hoped to provide here. But Russia did not succeed in these attacks either. Ukrainian troops had built a wall around Bakhmut and Soledar, which are now the arteries of the war. The Ukrainian army had equipped these areas with Air Force equipment. With successful counterattacks, the Ukrainian army repelled the Russian invaders from this area as well. The heavy losses suffered by the Wagner Group's troops in Soledar angered the company's boss Yevgeny Prigozhin. Prigozhin recently made a statement about the Ukrainian troops. It was a kind of admission of failure. Yevgeny Prigozhin, the boss of the Wagner Group company, said, "The Ukrainian army is working clearly and harmoniously. We have a lot to learn from them. Russia is trying to achieve what it has failed to achieve in the war through propaganda actions. There are very fierce clashes around Soledar and Bakhmut, as well as many propaganda actions. Recently, a Ukrainian commander stated that the Russians are not as successful on the front line as their propaganda. For example, Russian troops and especially the Wagner Group soldiers are declaring victory in the areas where the fighting is going on. They support this propaganda with videos they shoot in empty and civilian areas. But the situation on the front line is very different. The Russian army is losing ground against Ukraine with increasing losses every day. The Ukrainian army, on the other hand, is achieving great success with the support of Western and European countries. In addition to its successes on land and in the air, the Ukrainian army also carries out a lot of work in coastal and port areas. For this reason, despite occupying the Crimean Peninsula in 2014, the Russian invaders have not been able to launch a successful naval attack on Ukraine since the start of the war on February 24, 2022. This is because Ukraine has deployed comprehensive air defense systems in these regions. Recently, Major General Andriy Kovalchuk, commander of the Ukrainian Southern Operational Command Forces, made a statement on the readiness of the naval forces. Kowalczyk said, "Today, the Black Sea coast is also a line of defense. Since the beginning of the total occupation of Russia, the entire Black Sea coastline, including the Odessa and Mykolaiv regions, has been equipped with anti-aircraft defense. Our task is to leave the enemy no chance to implement their criminal plans." It is now known that Ukraine, with the help of Western and European countries, has a very powerful military equipment. We can see this in Bakhmut and Soledar, where the war is raging. But Russia is losing power every day due to the sanctions imposed by Western and European countries, the opposition to the occupation inside the country, and the large number of soldiers who do not want to fight. Ukraine continues to inflict serious damage on the Russian army with successful offensives. Since the beginning of the war, Russia has lost over 120,000 military personnel, over 3,000 tanks, and nearly 2,000 drones. Retired Russian commander Igor Girkin made statements about Russia's decline during the occupation, stating that Russia will see worse days if the war continues. Girkin said in a post shared on his Telegram account, "I have the impression that we will sink by the end of this year, and you. It is clear that Russia's economy is deteriorating day by day.